Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles and cousins, of course, and nanas and papas, or if you prefer, grandmothers and grandfathers, and baseball fans everywhere. Hello and welcome to this edition of the Valley Baseball League podcast. My name is Graham Knight, and on behalf of the Valley Baseball League and the teams in this league, it is my pleasure to welcome you here tonight to a place we call the Analytic Zone. Yeah. I know that it should read something along the lines of this. It's in the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fear and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of the imagination. It is the area which we call the Twilight Zone. You know, I've taken a few liberties. Personally, I think it sounds a lot better like this. It's in the middle ground between home plate and home plate, between the math of 6 plus 4 plus 3 equals 2, and the superstition that has players everywhere not changing their underwear for the entire season. And it lies between the windup and the summit of his accomplishments. This is the dimension of the analytic, a place we call the Analytic Zone. For those of you who've been following our all-decade teams discussion, parts 1, 2, 3, 4, you may have gotten lost. So, never fear, we have a roadmap. Before we dive into the outfield and kind of put the bow on our all-decade team, let's recap kind of where we've been. Hey, Joe and John, say hi to everybody. And
hi, everybody.
Joe.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, see, look at that. Just like I trained them. Sorry, guys, I couldn't resist. All right. So where have we been? And then take us to our final destination.
Yeah. Well, so we started talking about the pitchers. We started with the starting pitchers, and John, remind us who was number one on the list, this top starting pitcher for the all-decade team.
On the first team, we talked a lot about Ricky Winters out of
Yes.
Woodstock 2013, and how good he was.
And remind us how good he was.
I think it was a 0.44 ERA
and insane stuff. And
went 5-0, 0.707 WHIP. Yeah, he was pretty good.
And didn't get drafted.
Did not get drafted.
Amazing. And then down in the relievers, like your number one reliever, I think you had a guy that did not give up an earned run the entire season he pitched. Can you remind us who that gentleman was?
That was Adam Zipko.
Adam Zipko.
Who pitched for Newmarket in 2013. And he did not give up an earned run in 22 innings and had 17 saves in those innings as well.
We talked about a bunch of absolutely ridiculous batting averages that came out of this league from the hitter side. There was we had a first baseman who hit 426 or 436. Who was that?
I think we're talking about Jimmy Yezzo.
Yeah.
He hit 362, but he had like 37 extra base hits. I think that we were talking about there. And Gunnar McNeil, who was on the second team first base, he hit 402.
All right.
So he had a higher batting average, but the Yezzo had him on the other numbers.
Okay. And then for behind the plate, catcher's Mark Zebedis or
Mr. Brad Zebedis.
He hit 420.
Yep, 420.
What year was that?
638. Yeah, he was in Strasburg in 2011. He was the league MVP that year, and actually, when we get to the outfielders here in a little bit, what's a little weird is 5 of the 6 on the first and second team were MVPs, and the only one who wasn't was in 2011. So Zebedis got the MVP that year, kept the outfielders from a clean sweep.
Yeah. So those are some of the names and numbers that stand out in my head from our conversations up to this point. What are some of the bigger highlights that, from your perspective, from the roster for the all-decade team?
Just the numbers on these lists are incredible, up and down. What's really fun for me, what was fun in doing the lists was this combination of, putting guys in that played just last year, and then all the way down to like Mike Garza, who we spoke to, who played in 2010. So it's an interesting meld of those lists. And the first team is just completely and utterly packed. And, we hardly talked at all about Michael Wilansky, who played second base for the Charlottesville Tom Sox in 2017 MVP. Corey Spangenberg would be his double play partner. I just, this team could beat anybody. It was a lot of fun to do.
Hey, I'm still blown away that we have Mike Garza here, and here's a guy who in 2010 comes out, lays down great numbers that nobody in 10 years has, beat him out of. To me, I'm kind of curious. I almost want to start a pool. How long is it going to be before somebody, upends Mike Garza in terms of the next all-decade team?
Well,
Yeah.
I like that. That gives. Nobody wants to read a list of the best players in the 2019 season. Maybe those guys would, but having a good mix of older guys and younger guys is a good thing. And if I can fill some of the gaps of my stats, there are a couple years from 2000 to 2010 2009 that I'm missing. If I can fill those in, maybe I'll do an all decade from the last decade.
Hey,
that would be fun too.
I just talked to Scott Musa. I had him on earlier today, and would he have those stats, or do you have them and you just need to put them in?
No, there are a couple. I think it's 2003, maybe 2, 3, and 2000. I'm missing to finish that off. I have all the way down through 2004. But 3, 2, and 1 and 2000, I don't have all of those. I'm hoping that somebody in the Valley League will help me out with that. We did these fun little booklets every year, and I'm hoping somebody can find one.
All right, all you somebodies out there listening, if you're hiding the 2000, 2002, or 2003 stats, stop right now. Send it immediately to John Leonard at allthingsvalleyleague.com. There, you got your marching orders. All right, Joe.
Awesome.
What do we need to put a bow on our all-decade team?
Well, we haven't even gotten to the outfield yet. So without further ado, John Leonard, now tell us, did you break this down by center fielder, right fielder, left fielder, corner outfielders?
I did not.
So we just got three outfielders on each team.
Yep.
All right, well, let's start at the top. First team outfielder, number one.
Yep, we've got 3 guys. The first one is Andrew Oyster, who played in Newmarket in 2018.
Newmarket, 2018, Andrew Oyster. Stat line there?
421, 511, 781. Obviously was MVP that year and helped lead the Rebels to the title as well. He's still active, actually. He's in South Carolina. He just had his abbreviated junior year. And if Major League Baseball hadn't cut the draft down to 5 rounds, which is awful, I think that Oyster was most likely going to get drafted, and he might still, but he's still in college.
Yeah, okay. As
is our second guy.
All right.
Who is Aidan Nagel, who played in Woodstock just last year, 2019. He played at Lewis Clark is where he transferred to for his junior year. But for Woodstock that summer, he hit 406, 492, 675 with 11 home runs and 10 doubles in Woodstock, which is actually a pretty difficult place to hit. And then the third outfielder on the first team is Jordan Tar Civic, who played in Strasburg in 2013. He was from VMI, and he was also MVP. No surprise there. He hit 414, 511, 529. He had a 28-20 walk to strikeout ratio, so that helped him out there with his 511 OBP. He was drafted, so our first 2 guys there are still active in college. Tar Civic was drafted and played pro ball up until 2017. He reached AA until he was released. So let's see if I can find that information. He was drafted in the 22nd round of the 2015 draft.
All right. And is he on somebody's roster somewhere?
He is not. Jordan has moved on to whatever is next in life.
All right, we'll have to see if we can catch up to him, find out what he's going on, at least give him his congratulations on being named to the All-Decade team from the Valley Baseball League. Now, were all three of these guys center fielders when they took the field for their respective teams?
No. Nagel played left field for
Okay.
Woodstock. I know that for sure. And I believe that Oyster played right field.
All right.
Tar Civic, though, I think actually was a center fielder, if I'm remembering correctly. So it looks like I covered all three of the spots by accident there.
Well, great. Yeah, nobody's out of position or feels they don't know what it looks like coming up from that. But excellent job, John Leonard, on that. All right, so second team outfield.
Second team. Okay, so first of all, it's Shane Billings, who played in Harrisonburg in 2015. He was a D2 guy out of Wingate and ended up getting drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals, 13th round in 2016. He also reached AA in the Cardinals system before they released him, which didn't make any sense to me because he was actually off to a really good start and was doing really well. And I actually reached out to Shane and said, "Hey, sorry, what's going on?" You know, sometimes guys ask for their release, you know, to see if they can catch on somewhere else, and Shane wasn't sure what had happened either, which was disappointing. But the second guy on the second team is Julian Ridings, who played in Waynesboro in 2012. He was also MVP that year. Also won the batting title. He hit 419, 454, 657 that year in 2012. Was also drafted 18th round, 2013 by Tampa Bay, and he reached A-ball before he was released. And then the third guy on the second team is the only major leaguer on the second team. We did have Spangenberg on the first team, but this is Mac Williamson, and he played in Harrisonburg in 2011, went to Wake Forest. Let's see, he hit 381, 469, 706, 11 doubles, 10 home runs that summer. Was drafted in the third round of 2012 draft. And then Mac ended up playing for the San Francisco Giants at the major league level in 2015, 16, 17, and 18 and 19, all of those seasons. He also played for the Seattle Mariners a little bit last year after the Giants let him go.
Wow. Not a bad little stint.
No, not bad at all. And
very good.
Mac has not been able to quite break through to regular status. And I was disappointed about how this happened, but I think it was 2018. He had retooled his swing in the offseason, and he was off to a pretty good start. And it looked like he was going to grab the Giants' left field spot. And he made this incredible play defensively, but slammed into a retaining wall and got a concussion and never was able to quite get it rolling after that. So I'm hoping that somebody gives him a shot. He's a big guy. He's 6'4", 220. I'd love to see somebody give him a shot and just stick him in the DH role or a left field spot and see what he could do at the major league level. Yeah,
that would be a lot awesome to see. We'll have to stay in touch with you as you keep your tabs on that situation, as we'll see what happens with the major leagues here in 2020. Because as we record this, no decisive announcement has been made. A lot of rumors swirling around about there's going to be some kind of a season in some form or fashion, but nothing certainly has been decided. So,
all right, baseball fans, I really hate to interrupt this conversation, but there are three important pieces of business I have to get to. Have to. First, please subscribe, like, and share us. Really super important to get the word out about the Valley Baseball League. We're in the top 10 of all summer collegiate base wood bat leagues. We're in the National Alliance of Collegiate Summer Wood Bat Leagues. It's an alliance of 12 leagues, including the Cape Cod League. We're one of only a few leagues sponsored by Major League Baseball. We want to let people know what's happening in the Valley, what's good about this organization, and why they want to be involved. So help us do that. Also, if you've got any questions, comments, thoughts, please share them. We'd love to hear from you. vbleague@isomermedia.com. That's vbleague@isomermedia.com. And I would be absolutely remiss if I did not pay tribute to our great sponsor, Grace Burrows. The two last years, I'm not sure if that's a sentence, but it sounds kind of cool. The 2 last years of Valley Baseball League live streams would not have happened if it were not for the contributions and support of Grace Burrows. Here's her latest book. If you haven't gotten it, support her by reaching out and getting it. It's a great read. She's a great writer. I'm happy to say I was one of her first readers. Anyway, take a look. All right, now it's time to get back to a place we call the analytics zone.
All right, so just to take a look at the 6 outfielders, the top 3 from the first team and the top 3 from the second team, I think I counted 5 league MVPs representing, or was it 4?
It's 5.
5. So the outfielders rule the roost in the VBL is what I'm hearing, or they did in the 2010.
Well, I almost went down this rabbit hole maybe yesterday when I was thinking about this. I didn't quite to look at the last 15 MVPs and see where they came from, but it surely seems like it. I mean, 5. There's half of the entire decade. So clearly, the outfielders were pretty important there.
Yeah. So if I'm a 10-year-old kid in the Shenandoah Valley and I want my dream in life is to be the MVP of the VBL, I want to tell the coach, put me in the outfield.
Well, maybe, I don't know. I think your best way to pro ball might be behind the dish.
Yeah. Well, Dan Jaffe agrees with us on that, and you can, because if you can hit 420 anywhere.
Well, of course, Zebedis didn't get a shot at pro ball though either.
Yeah.
You just never know.
When it comes to catching, you don't have to ask Joe twice. By the way,
well, before you say, Graham, I never caught.
Well, I know, but
never
you wanted to. You were aspiring.
I just wanted to.
Yeah. And that's my point exactly. If somebody comes to you and says, here's a left-handed catcher's mitt. It may look a little weird, but we need you to catch this game.
I'd be there.
You're not likely to say no.
No, I'd be down.
By the way, so I got a chance to catch up with Austin Gisriel today. I'm not sure if you guys know the name. You should. Mm-hmm. He is the author of Safe at Home. Look, John's got his copy. Look at that. All right, Joe, I know you don't have one. That's on me. That's my fault. I'm going to get you one. I'm going to get you the swag from the league. That's on my to-do list. But, the fun thing about Austin is while he was following the Newmarket Rebels for that year, he's out there shagging balls at batting practice. He's, hanging out. He said, he's even taken batting practice with he took it with Mo Weber. So really, just Joe, I just want you to know you may get your chance to catch a game. It might not be a real one, but you might get your chance. So just keep talking about it.
All right, we'll see if anybody has a catcher's mitt for left-handers hanging around the VBL.
All right, so it sounds like we do have one rabbit hole to go down. At some point, we're going to have to dig into and find out, who were the other 5 MVPs, John? If the 5 of them were outfielders,
Okay, so let's see if we can do it. We know that Zebedis.
Yeah, Brad Zebedis.
Won. So there's 6.
What year was he?
2011.
All right.
Spangenberg was MVP in 2010, and he was a shortstop. That's 7 of them. Gunnar McNeil was the MVP.
Catcher. When you catcher?
First baseman.
First base, that's right.
In 2014, that puts us at 8. And I just had one in mind, and then it disappeared. There was a first baseman that didn't make either of the lists. It was Zach Sterry from 2016. He was MVP that year. That's 9. And there's one more.
You should have known better.
It was Michael Wolanski, second baseman. There it is. There's your 10.
Very good. Graham, you should have known better than to test John on this.
Yeah, all here unrehearsed. Nothing up the sleeves. Nothing up the sleeves, John.
No, it's not amazing. Great podcasting to have to stop and think about these things. But,
that's why we have John. He never has to stop and think. It's great. Well, before we got two more names.
Right, two more players.
Before we sign off, I'm on this all-decade team. These are the utility players. Now, tell us again what your definition of the utility player is.
This is actually important. Some people look at utility and they think that's somebody that plays a lot of different positions on the field. In the Valley League, and the way these awards are given out at the end of the year, it's usually a guy that is both a hitter and a pitcher. So that's how we looked at utility here. So they had to perform both at the plate and on the bump to be considered. But the first team all utility he's a legend in the Valley. It's Brandon Carranza. He played in Strasburg in 2016 and 17. Brandon is just a big, strong first baseman, and then he was a reliever for the Express as well. So in 2016, so he had 2 seasons. In 16, he hit 375, 425, 713. He didn't play the whole season, so he only had 80 at bats. But on the mound, he didn't give up an earned run in about 8 innings pitched. Then in 2017, when he came back, and note, you recognize that the Express were good in both of these seasons, right? In no small part because of Brandon. In 2017, he hit 331, 448, 623 in 151 at-bats, double figures, doubles, and home runs. And then on the pitching side, he threw a lot more. He had an ERA of 159, had 4 saves, and a 0.99 whip in 11 1/3 innings. So while he didn't have a huge amount of time on the mound, he still was very good when he was there.
He definitely made his mark.
And he was the reason that Strasburg, he was one of the reasons that Strasburg was so good in those 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. And then the second team, oh, by the way, Brandon played for, he was at Philadelphia U, which they changed their name to Jefferson for his senior year. Brandon did not get a chance to play pro ball. He is still playing baseball, but it's not with an affiliated team. I know that he got a nibble from the New York Mets. They were thinking about signing him as a free agent, and it just never materialized. So, again, you think this guy, he's got to be drafted.
Right.
And was not. Now, the second team all-utility player is a more recent guy as well, and that's Rick Spires. He played in Charlottesville in 2017. You guys have talked a lot about Sam Crawford and how awesome he was in 2019, right. Winning the title. Rick Spires was on the mound when the Charlottesville Tom Sox won the 2017 title. He was from Division III, Randolph-Macon, and had a super summer. Hit 331, 391, 487. In 117 at-bats. And then on the mound, he went 4-0 with a 0.78 ERA, struck out 10.6 batters per 9 innings in 23 innings, and helped the Tom Sox go 32-10 that summer.
That was a powerful team.
Yeah, absolutely. And these 2 guys were more than earned their spots onto these decade teams.
So, this all utility player, should we take them from the bottom of the list and put them at the top? And it's like, as in the top of the list is highlighting the most impactful players. It's the guys that have the most talent, that are the most diverse.
Yeah.
Or at least talent in 2 different ways.
Right.
And in the Valley, those guys that can perform at a high level at the plate and then also give you some innings on the mound. I mean, that's doing double duty. I mean, it's kind of like who's the Los Angeles Angels
Ohtani
in the in the major leagues, like it's almost like you have two players for the price of one.
Ohtani.
Yeah, until he blew out his elbow, I guess.
Right. Yeah, the plan was to see him back in action here in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen an update, but yeah, so these guys are almost like in a class by themselves, and I can see why you had to separate them out. You pulled them out because their influence, their impact on their teams, transcended one position. Mm-hmm. So how many guys does each team, like in a standard 42 game season in the Valley Baseball League, does each team have one or two guys that does double duty like this, or
at least
pretty rare? Yeah,
at least
2 or 3, a couple.
And it's just that not all of them do it quite to the level of what these two guys have done.
Yeah.
Hey, John, do me a favor. Talk a little bit about how, because I've always been kind of fascinated by the whole staffing of a team. As soon as the season's over, they're going out recruiting for the next season. They're always kind of over recruit because the 30 guys you pick, all 30 of them aren't going to show up. From your knowledge and your experience in the league, and a coach goes out, how many players are they looking at in terms of position? And I know it's around 15 pitchers. What are they looking for in terms of utility players, or is that just gravy?
Yeah, I think it's just gravy. I'm not sure that Valley League coaches and recruiters go out and say, I need to get me 2 guys that can do both. I think generally it's more of a bonus of when it does happen. It can make guys, obviously it makes guys more valuable.
Well, I'm thinking of, when we talked to, trying to remember the interview we did, Mike Garza talks about coming out here, and, it was almost like he wanted to see, I think it had to do with stealing bases. I just wanted to see if I could do it. It was my chance to try. I think about Roberto Hernandez, who was catching. So I had to throw in a catcher story for you, Joe. Just, it's personal. Yes, it's personal. Anyway, decides to try it from pitching. I wonder how many of these guys come here maybe as a position player and just like, well, let me see if I can do it. Or they get put into a situation like happened with Woodstock, where they only had 9 guys show up for a game at the end of the season, and everyone on the field had to go through a rotation on the mound. And then you discover a talent maybe you didn't know you had, or didn't have a chance to try in a season elsewhere.
You just never know. You see it sometimes in the major leagues where it's a blowout, and they'll put the backup middle infielder in on the mound, and suddenly you've got Wilson Valdez throwing 90 miles an hour off the mound. You're like, man, where did this come from?
Yeah.
You just never know. But I can think of 2 more guys in just the last 2 seasons that have been really important utility guys. One was Bryson Horn, who played for Strasburg last year, and then Rob Griswold played for Front Royal. I believe in 2018. I might have the year wrong there, but those 2 guys were also very good at the plate and on the mound.
So we're going to continue to talk about the Valley League all-decade team, John, but to kind of put a bow on this segment of, as we've now gone through the entire roster and highlighted each of the guys from each of the 2 teams, I'm going to put you on the spot, but you're good on the spot. So who is your player of the decade?
Oh, the changeup comes from Joe. It's moving from the mound slowly across the grass. It's approaching the plate, and here comes John with the swing.
I think I would have to go with Corey Spangenberg.
It's a home run.
I think that's tough. All of these guys were so good in the Valley, and I of course don't want to denigrate any of them. Mm-hmm. But Spangenberg, he was one of those guys that just was kind of on another level when he was here, and everybody knew that he was going to go on to amazing things, and obviously he has. I think that I would go with him.
All right. Well, let's just sleep on it. Next time we talk, we'll come back around and see if you're still comfortable with that call. But nobody's going to argue with you.
Oh, you might be surprised, actually.
Well,
okay,
hey,
maybe somebody's going to debate you on that. But
but we encourage feedback. So let's just do this here. if you've been following the Valley League for a while or just tuning in and have a different opinion, we want to hear about it. You can send us an email and send your comments to the VB League at isomermedia.com. That's the VB League at isomermedia.com. We'd love to hear your questions, comments, thoughts, criticisms, whatever. This is a dialogue, and we want to hear from you. So, yeah, Joe, you could be surprised. Someone might have a different opinion, and we'd love to hear it.
Well, you're absolutely right, and like John said, all these guys, deserve serious consideration for that type of an acknowledgement. And as John mentioned from the outset, from our very first conversation around this is all his opinion, right, John?
Yeah, it's all on me. If anybody has an issue with it, it's my fault.
Yeah, but and it's just a good way to get us to keep talking ball during the pandemic and when there's no ball on the field to talk about. So let's talk about the games and the players that we've seen in the past. And I would welcome the debate. Let's have it.
Yeah, well, the next best thing to playing baseball is talking baseball.
Absolutely.
Gentlemen, any closing thoughts on the all-decade team before we wrap this up?
Well, I want to know what John thinks. So, John, this is a big project. And just to acknowledge, we talked about this on our first podcast where we started going down the roster. But this was a project that you took on your own as a volunteer for the league, and you spent your own time and energy and intelligence on this, which is a major undertaking. And I just want to acknowledge that and make sure everybody knows that it's you and you alone we had to thank for the opportunity to sit here and spend a couple of hours talking about it and having a good time. But with that said, now it's your prerogative. What are your final thoughts on the names that you've given us over the last few episodes?
My final thoughts. Well, thanks to Joe Deck probably for pushing me to do it. I don't know. He didn't technically push, but he gave me the idea. I don't know. I just think it was fun. I think it's too bad that we're not starting a new decade now so that we can start the next all-decade team. But it was fun, and I just love looking back at the guys who were standouts in previous years, and it was a lot of fun to do. Maybe I'll just leave us all with that thought. And I appreciate
perfect.
you guys having me on to talk about it.
Oh, great having you. All right. So I know you thought that was my last question, but here comes my change up. So we talked to Mike Garza. I've got Michael Walensky online. Pick one other player if there is one that you'd love to talk to. I am reaching out to the baseball agents. Do we want to see if we can get Corey on? Would it be nice to talk to Corey Spangenberg?
Of course.
Hey, give me a backup. Give me your utility interview backup.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about guys that have achieved the most in the sport, it would be Mac Williamson would be the next guy you'd look for.
I want to talk to Brad Zemedes. I want to know how you hit 420 and not get drafted.
Might be painful for Brad.
Well, you know what? I'll reach out to him. All right. So I tell you what, let's wrap it up there. Gentlemen, thank you for your efforts. I'm going to press the right button here, and I'll put a bow on this. All right.
You notice I picked a catcher, right, Graham?
You know what? You slipped that one by me. I didn't. I was stuck trying to figure out the technical things. I'm not surprised. I love that you are that committed to it, and I'm going to get you in the game. I'm going to get some of these guys, and I'm going to get you in a game. That's what I'm going to do. I want to see you catch.
I don't think you could go wrong with talking with any of these guys.
No, not a single one of them.
Like I think Brandon Carranza would be an excellent interview. He was always a super nice guy and very willing with his time with me.
All right, Brandon Carranza it is. All right, let me put a bow on this so everyone feels like they got their money's worth. If I can find the right button. I got to hit the button again. You got me distracted with the catcher thing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up for at least a discussion of the roster for the all-decade teams. We reserve the right to bring you some follow-up interviews with the players themselves. As you've just heard, we've got our list. If you've got a name you want to add to the list and you're like, wow, I'd really like to hear from this guy, shoot us an email. Just a reminder, vbleague@isomermedia.com, vbleague@isomermedia.com. That is going to do it for this edition of the Valley Baseball League podcast. Can't thank you enough for joining us. I look forward to another podcast tomorrow night, same time, same YouTube channel. Until then, we're wishing you a perfect health, and we're wishing you all a speedy return to the baseball diamond. On behalf of the league and the teams, I'm Graham Knight. Thanks again for joining us,